Multimillion Mastermind. I am so delighted to have the extraordinary, fantastic Sam Taggart on the show today.
Oh, you're too nice.
Welcome to the show. I'm serious. Sam is not your typical just everyday guy. I met Sam last year at an Avengers Mastermind, and I've just seen him even from last year, just all the growth, all the incredible things that you're creating in this life. And how old are you? You're like 32, and you are doing things that just people in their lifetime wouldn't do. I'm just so impressed by you, and I would love to just get to know you through this episode, and also for our listeners to be able to really get so much good content and advice and just be so inspired by you, because you're definitely a unicorn.
Well, I wish I would have wings and was a Pegasus, though. That's more that. No,
but maybe you do. Maybe you do. I mean,
I was like, my daughter would be like, "Oh, my dad's a unicorn now." No, she would definitely not.
Yeah, I feel like the unicorn is more of that feminine essence.
Yeah,
is that right?
exactly.
Okay.
I'll be a.
What do you want to be?
I'll be a rare buck.
Okay, that works. That works.
Never been called a unicorn. Okay, I'll take that. No, I'm just doing my thing. So.
Well, Sam, so you doing your thing is like next level, situation. So I know that you have D2D, which is door-to-door company, and you put on these incredible events. And I know you started at Vivint as a sales rep, right? And you became like number one top sales rep. And then you probably got inspired. You're like, you found a need and you're like, I'm going to go and take off with this and just start teaching people and training them. But tell us a little bit about your story of maybe how you got started. And then later on, we can get into more of the, how have you taken this thing to like extraordinary levels?
Yeah. So I knocked doors since I was 11. That's all I did growing up. And then when I was 18, I got into the alarm space.
What were you selling at 11, by the way?
I did magazines. Then I did curb painting when I was like 13. So all through high school, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I knocked doors selling candy bars for like a campaign." And I'm like, no. That's the only way I made money. Like I've never had a W-2 job. And then when I was 18, shipped out to Dallas and did it all the way through. I did alarms through 2015 and then solar for a couple of years as a VP of sales of a solar company. And then 2017, I kind of started this, I started planning this event where I was like, hey, I'm going to unify, up level, and bring honor and integrity to the door-to-door space. Just because I felt like when people say door-to-door, most people are like, oh, you do that thing, like that's a real job. Like, it kind of gets this like negative stigma. And I was like, well, yeah, like this is how I make money and I feel good about it. Like, it's not a bad thing. And more people should be open to that because in 4 months, I'd make a lot more than what most people would make in 12 months, and I was like, yes. I gotta live a good life. And it gave me money to invest into real estate early on, and live and travel and just have a good life. And then in 2018, I launched my first door-to-door con, which now we've done that 5 years. Last year I had like 2,000 people there, and then we've hosted about 30 events a year. And so like last week we had two different events for business owners in Denver. Do a lot of public speaking, and I have a couple tech companies, and just all sorts of random stuff has stemmed from kind of finding a niche and saying, how do I solve problems for kind of the direct sales community? So it's kind of where I'm at.
That's fantastic. And I love how you said that, because you found a need and something that was so niche, like you said, and then it just came probably flowing in with obviously you leading it and taking some massive action to get it to the levels it is. But I just want to kind of talk a little bit more about that transition period. So you were door-to-door selling and living at probably a really good life, right? And you were, how you said it, making in 4 months what people don't even make in a year. And so about how old were you during this time period?
So from 18, I served a 2-year service mission for the church in Argentina for 2 years. And then...
O sea que hablas español.
Sí, hablo español.
Ah, Sam habla español
Castellano,
también. Castellano y la lluvia.
sick.
That's pretty cool.
And then what else? Oh, and then I did that all the way through end of 2017. And then started this, just kind of was like, I was at a crossroads where in our industry, it's really recruiting heavy. So like people, when I first threw the event, people are like, oh, that's a great idea to recruit all my people. Hell no, I'm not bringing anybody to that. You know what I mean? And
The fear,
so they were like, it's just a recruiting battle. And I was like, no, like I mean well when I want to do this event. And I got to the point where I was like, look, I'm so committed to this mission that I'm quitting VP of sales and going all in, and I'm just gonna full send. And it was kind of scary just because like we lost money on the event. So then the owner's like, so how are you gonna make money? Like on a podcast and a negative event, like see in a couple months, like, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of, and I had saved money, and I just had bought a lot to build my dream home kind of thing. And it was like, okay, I'm jobless. I've got some money in the bank. I gotta figure this out. So my back was up kind of against the wall, and I just kind of was like, look, I'll trust this. God was like, you need to do this. And it's cool. We've impacted, tens of thousands of people now. And
it's amazing.
It's been really cool.
So that door-to-door con is what you call it.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty much for anyone out there who has door-to-door sales. So like pest companies,
solar, roofing, alarms, windows. I mean, there's so many industries, and it's turned into a lot more like anybody in sales and business. Like, I mean, because we bring in big names. Like last year we had Jim Quick, Tim Story, Jesse Itzler, Eric Thomas, like tons of great speakers and workshops and vendors. And, that's just like kind of our flagship event. But then we do like 2-day business boot camps where we train on how to recruit salespeople, how to train them, how to onboard them, how to kind of build out systems to scale a direct sales business. Because I think that a lot of people, they don't realize if you can just get more sales guys talking to more people and closing at a higher percentage, that's how you grow your business. Like it's a very simple formula, and everybody's trying these magic funnels on a line, and they're like, oh, if I just like, spend 20 grand a month, I will get business. And it doesn't always work that way. You know what I mean? You could go in SEO forever and just be like, why is my phone not ringing? And I'm like, oh, let's go be carnivores. Let's go like find people to sell.
Yeah, it's like going back to the basics, and it works. I'm right there too. I'm building out more of my sales force right now, and that's really the only way for me to keep building this thing, and I have a lot of people within my network, and a lot of our listeners are within the real estate industry, obviously because of my company. And I got in it when I was 22, so kind of grew up in it, and here I am. But I think that there's a lot of connectivity and probably opportunity for real estate to also come to your events.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I know
a lot of real estate.
Yeah, because I know we kind of briefly talked about it one day when I said, Sam, we need to do something because a part of being a very successful real estate agent, one of the things is definitely door knocking and farming an area. And I know many incredible real estate agents out there that are highly succeeding, and they're door knocking in different states and here too. But I just think there's still a ton of opportunity where they can get better training on how to do that. And why not learn from someone who's mastered that, which is you. Yeah. And so that's definitely why I wanted to bring you on the show. Well, one, you're incredible, but two, I think that there's just a lot of benefit where we can really bring in more of that community. So you're saying you do have real estate people.
Yeah, we had a kid last week in Denver who does wholesale real estate, and I mean, the kid has like a Lambo. He's 19. He's like killing it. And, and he came to the business boot camp to figure out how does he take that to another level. And, I fly out to Atlanta to consult him next week on the 4th and 5th. You know what I mean? So it's like, wow. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of like face-to-face relationship building. And, it's kind of like, oh, I have 3 leads or 3 appointments today. It's like, okay, what are you gonna do the rest of the day? That's a couple hours. And then twiddle your thumbs, or, a lot of people justify, well, I gotta like, do some emails and follow up. And then they waste 3-4 hours of their day thinking around. And, it's like, what if you just like committed to a couple hours a day where you just like actually prospect, and maybe you have a little bit more rejection. Maybe it's a little bit more of a cold contact, but it's like, what if you mastered and got good at that?
That's amazing. So you're saying that for really good salespeople, they need to be talking to people all day.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
no,
the magic? No
Oh my
way.
gosh,
Is
we're living
that
it.
the
We're
magic?
in a contact sport. Like I think, and it's so frustrating. I mean, I have sales guys right now that I just had a sales like little roundup yesterday, and I'm just like, okay, we're a door-to-door sales company. You guys sell on the phone. I get that, but it's the same logic. Like I was like, how many calls did you make? Okay, cool. You talked to 3 people yesterday. Like what, like you expect to make money doing that? Like, sorry. You know what I mean? And I have like, what's nice about inside sales or phone sales is like, you're like, I'm looking at the numbers so clearly. Door to door, it's a little bit more, there's apps that track it and things like that. But, it's a numbers game. Like you go talk to people and you have good, meaningful conversations with potential prospects, and there you go. And I think so many people complicate this. Like I'm
Yes.
obviously you're listening, you're trying to make more money. And it's like, I didn't, I think a lot of people when they watch me or they see my success, like, I've made millions of dollars knocking on doors, and people are like, what? Like, that's a thing? You're not like coked out and like out of jail and can't get a normal job. I'm like, no, I
Yes.
very much could have gotten a normal job. Like, but I just found that there was an unlimited sea of people. Or if I work in the car industry, it's like if no one shows up to my car lot, then it's like, what do I do? If I work in the title company and nobody calls me, it's kind of like, are you being creative and saying, who am I calling? And doors is like, I don't know, there's tons of neighborhoods, start knocking.
Yeah, there's
Mhm.
definitely lots of people living somewhere.
Yeah, they're living somewhere.
That's so awesome. So then you launch this event, and then, this is your main source of, first of all, like revenue, I'm sure. Is it still
No.
D2D, or now because I love that you're like, oh, I have all these other things in real estate and investing and also other companies. So
Our training platform is probably our main source. It's interesting. We go to companies. Yeah, we don't talk about this a lot. Like, yeah, most of our revenue comes from, we have about 250 companies that we have flown out to their office. We film, we edit, and we create their training platform.
oh,
So
wow.
like we basically build out a tool that they can use for all their teams, whether it's sales or customer service, and help them better automate training and streamline that and build out systems. And so, we don't, yeah, it's like funny. We should probably talk about that more, considering that's like the bread and butter of how we make most of our money. But it's kind of nice. It's a recurring model just because they pay per user, and we help them streamline the setup. Because for me, if I train somebody, like I have a new guy starting today, and we luckily have drinking our own Kool-Aid and built our own training system to where I'm like, well, who's training Joe? I'm like, no, you better didn't watch the videos. So like, I didn't let him start yesterday because I was like, you literally haven't started the videos. So you can come back tomorrow, watch the videos, because I'm not going to sit there and waste my time until you've sat there and spent your time on these videos. And he
Yeah.
was like, oh, I was like, yeah, like, why would I spend 3-4 hours when it's even better training if you just sit there and watch the videos? And so same concept. We just help people think through that and strategize a better flow.
I love that you say that, because it's like when we're teaching, we can be so specific. And then when we're having to practice it in ourselves, it's like, oh, that's the real game.
Yeah,
the
it's
real
like,
game
no,
is
you go learn it. I already know it.
Yeah.
I can sit there and spew it on you, but that doesn't ensure that you actually paid attention, you know what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah, like we need to make sure we're implementing everything that perhaps we're teaching. And I love that about you, that and you talked about integrity. At one point you said you wanted to build something that was integrous in this space.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I feel like 5% of this industry has given the industry kind of a bad rap. You look at like the typical stigma of a door-to-door person. It's like, oh, you're scamming people, you're sketchy, and there are some elements of like that stereotype comes for a reason, right? Like, and we started a D2D association. It's a nonprofit to kind of help mediate and mitigate some of that just dumb, selfish, and like out of integrity people that go either protecting a customer, protecting a company, or protecting a sales rep. There's some bad companies out there that just, don't pay or lie. And, so for us, we're kind of that centerfold of like, how do we help inspire the right code of ethics? And then we have found that, there's an integrity to the space of just how people operate like within an inner company, meaning there's a lot of like bad mouthing and mudslinging, and not really, it wasn't very unified. Like when I threw the first event, I thought I should bring just like a cage fight, like a UFC thing that I could like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God.
That would have gotten you a
I've
lot
watched-
of good reviews.
I know. I was like, I've watched like CEOs, suing each other and money slinging, you know what I mean? I'm just like, I've seen some bad like business battles. And so I'm like, to put them all in the same little room and have them break bread together, like that's going to be interesting. Like, and surprisingly, it's kind of cleaned everything up a little bit, because people can't, like, it's hard to show face. Like you're talking crap about a dude that you've never even met, and you're making shiz up about this company that like, I don't, you know what I mean? And it's like, wait a minute, shake hands, be friends, and see now how you operate. And it brought a lot more like just like visibility, integrity, unity.
Wow.
People started building treaties, people started making amends, and I was like, there we go.
Wow,
Like,
that's
it's pretty
next
cool.
level. Just, building that community,
Yeah.
having them come together. That's pretty fantastic. Okay, so you have that, and then you talk to, like, fast forward now to where you are today. So now you have, you said tech company.
Yeah, we built
and-
a recruiting software. It's pretty dope. It's called Recruitomatic. And so it's basically like a CRM for pipeline management for recruiting, because a lot of like network marketing companies or recruiters, like, you're recruiting at a high level, door to door, whatever that is, the organization of that and communication to the candidate is very poor, and visibility to multifaceted recruiters. So let's say you have a team of 10 and you want to turn them on to recruiters. How do you know who they're recruiting and how their pipeline is, et cetera? And then we built a texting software called Vanilla that is
I might need that recruiting app or whatever.
stuff. And
That's
then
awesome.
Vanilla Message is like a texting software more for clients, or just for like masterminds or influencers or whatever. Like it's a AI texting platform to where you can send out text for follow-up, upsells, reviews, kind of any kind of engagement piece via text instead of email. So you can build out campaigns that drip over time, and it's really cool because
really cool.
because you do this email marketing or you build a funnel. It's like, how do you trigger campaigns based on dispositions? So we coach people on like, you call somebody, like, let's say you're a realtor and you're like, hey, you want to sell your house? I'm like, no, not yet, but maybe next year. Well, I'll send them on a next year drip campaign via text that I've already pre-templated and built. And now every month they're getting like a little value out of like, hey, this what's, update on the real estate and
That's
update on this. And now I'm like front of mind as a realtor, knowing that hopefully that this is kind of top of mind awareness for them. So when they do get that event that triggers them to say, let's sell our house, they're like, well, Sam's been texting me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we're working on our third one right now.
Well, and it's so much better. Like the email open rate is
It's like
so
12%,
low. Nobody uses that anymore. So
text is
it's
98%.
brilliant. Yeah.
So you can find that recruitomatic.co or vanillamessage.com. Those are, they're great tools. It's kind of like, this is a tool that helps you automate to elevate.
That's pretty awesome. What's your passion right now? You have so much going on. You have how many employees right now?
Like 20 something.
Yeah. But like huge businesses. And so what is your passion right now? Like what, and maybe it is within business and maybe it's outside of business.
So I've been writing this book for like 3 years called the Achievement Framework. And then I like had a baby. And so I'm like restarting the first one. I'm like 500 pages in, and I might restart so that it better sequels into the second book, which is the Human Development System. And it's kind of, they go hand in hand. So it's like achievement is like how you achieve anything in life or business. And it's basically this formula that goes off the scripture, Matthew 7:7. So it's like, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be open unto you. And like, how do you follow that framework? And then the human development system is really a tool or framework or system that maps out how do you achieve and continue to achieve in life to continue this development to mastery. And I think that just to research and study, like I'm really passionate about learning about that kind of stuff and the psychology of like actual mastery and development and what makes people really good at what they do. And, I've consulted 200 something companies and have masterminds, a bunch of CEOs and stuff. So it's like, I run a lot of this and I'm watching, how do you take a company from 1 to 10 million or 20 to 100 million? Like, and I've done that. And I'm like, okay, what did they do? And what's this series of events? And what, you know what I mean? Like what are the frameworks that I could then give to other coaches, other managers, other leaders to help others do that? And so we're actually building an app called Expand right now that is, and I've trademarked the word human development system. And it's like a new category of tech that's really dope. And it takes goal setting and assignments and, habits and, different sales goals or whatever goal you're trying to push for. And it makes it to where it's an easy framework to keep yourself accountable or other people on your team accountable to learning a new skill, from like video content to training to achieving goals and actually like accomplishing tasks and tracking all that and habits and other things. Like it's really cool. Communication, environment, network, mastermind, like it all lives in one ecosystem. And for me, I feel like leaders don't get good frameworks on how to support their people. And so if I could give just a simple playbook of like, do this and consistently do this and watch your people.
Wow.
That's like what is exciting for me. So
that is really exciting. So in your research of all of these people that are also high achievers like you and successful, what would you say are the top 3 things that they all have in common?
Yeah, so kind of the framework of the human development system is like they have a goal and they're very clear on what they want. Because I think a lot of people don't really dissect and visualize and really get down to the HD level of like, what is it that I actually want? Most people are like, I want a lot of money. It's like, well, and then you challenge that. It's like, why do you want that? It's like, what I mean? It's like, we don't spend enough time paying attention to that, or it's not top of mind awareness. And so I think of the high achievers, they can get in a state where it's like very clear, I am this, I'm going to have this is what I'm doing, I'm focused. And then accountability. So I would say play the game. That's how you easily remember. It's GAME. So you have goals, accountability. And so everybody in high achievers have good teams, good accountability systems, coaches, people that like an actual tracking. Like you said, your numbers guide you, shows that you're accountable to numbers. You're like, I have a CFO that gives me these reports that like, I know that I'm accountable to something. And then the next one is mentorship, meaning you have somebody that is above you that or below you even, like that you can really count on for true mentorship and like true coaching, true leadership. Like we're both part of that Avengers Mastermind. I host 2 different masterminds. I have the Taggart Bucket List Mastermind. I have where we go to cool destinations and like I just invite high five people, and like I do the expert circle where I was out in Denver last week for 2 days, and I'm like, I'm coaching all the CEOs, but I'm like, you guys coach me too. Like that's why I call it a circle. Like I was like, I enjoy this. You guys are doing some cool stuff. And then eventually
you're learning from them at the same time.
Yeah,
that's
like
awesome.
That's what I call a circle. But then you have environment. So that kind of goes with, who you associate with. So it's like, I look at every successful person as they're on a mission to continue to up-level their environment. So I look at like the Avengers thing and like, I was hesitant in real estate, and, you're like, I've done real estate my whole life, but it's like, I was like, wow, I was inspired at some of the stuff they're doing. And I'm like, okay, I could probably do more. And all of a sudden, just by that exposure, so environment creates exposure. Yes. You're just like,
definitely.
Oh, I'm not different than you. You're a turd. Like, oh, maybe I am different. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, wait, you're here? Like, no. And like, you start to see trends and you start to say, okay, this community inspires me to do X. So like if you joined a CrossFit gym, maybe you're going to be more CrossFit focused than you go to yoga's environments. You're going to be kind of a yogi, so just pay attention to like, what communities are you associating with and why? I think people are so unintentional about their community. They're like, well, I just have these friends. I've always had these friends and we go to the parties and we do this. And it's like, well, now you're looking to get out of that rat race, but why do you continue to hang out with the same people?
Yes.
So you follow the game. I just say, live life, play the game. That's kind of my like motto of the human development system. It's like, live life, play the game. And
that's amazing.
If you can, track success, it really comes down to that.
Wow. I love the environment part because I feel like that is one of my biggest, I would say, ways that I've gotten to where I'm at today is definitely by the environment, the people I've surrounded myself with. It's been everything. Like, I've been so uncomfortable so many times as I'm up-leveling to where I'm in this group of people and they're doing way bigger things than I am. And And I love how you said like, oh, I can't do that. And you do get to a point that uncomfort is just a sensation. You're like, oh yeah, I've experienced this a few times in my life. Like I'm so excited to be uncomfortable, because then you get exposed to these conversations, these ideas, people just dreaming so big and creating a big life. And you're like, you cannot stay within the community almost if you don't up level. Like you'll either feel too uncomfortable, you'll be like, oh no, this is too big for me, this is too much for me, which I'm like, stay in the uncomfort, like go for it, do the big thing, start bringing value to those conversations as well. But it almost like forces you to be pulled up. It's like magical to me.
Well, it's the easiest way that I can like relate it. And anybody that plays, like I play basketball, right? And when you go play pickup ball at the Gold's Gym, and it's a bunch of like just chubby, whatever, want to be shooting around. You're like, hey, let's play a game. You know what I mean? Like you're like, hey, let's put 10 together and like, let's do a run. And all of a sudden you're like, and you don't play that well. Like I found myself like, I'm like, oh, this is fun, but it's not like the people I've jived with. It's not the people I've played with before. They're all kind of like super mix of talent. And you're just like, I tend to play at a level 4. But then all of a sudden you'll go play in a run where they've played together for a long time. They all like are ex-college athletes. Like, you know what I mean? It's a whole different caliber of individual. And you're like, damn, I like look really good. Like I actually play, like, you're like, I never played college, but I'm like trying to hang. You're like, I'm going to hang. The competitive side of you is like, I'm hanging. And your level of game, if somebody had game film of watching you play in that environment where the day before you might've been playing at Gold's Gym, digging around, you're like, was that the same basketball player? You know what I mean? And it's that quick from one night to the next night, you could see completely different tempo based on that culture of that environment. So it's the same thing in life. Like it literally, but it's hard to physically, like in a basketball game, you can physically see the difference. In a game of life, like you can't, it's not as obvious until like you look back and you disassociate it for a second. Maybe you go back to the party and you're like, this stuff isn't as fun like it used to be. Or like these conversations that I thought were fun aren't as stimulating, because I've had these conversations and you're like, this is low level basketball. This is way more fun to play over here. And you'll start to just naturally find comfort in, as long as you choose to play the game and be competitive and say, I'm in it. Because you could self-elect and sit on the sidelines and be like, yeah, go, you know, you guys. It's
like a hype girl.
Yeah, you could be
like
the hype girl.
Cheerleader.
And there's a lot of those. There's a lot of these motivated idiots that go to these conferences. I'm serious. Like
that's so true.
Yeah. Like they go to the conferences, they're there, but they put themselves as cheerleader versus put themselves as participant. And I have people in my mastermind, I have people that come to my events. Like, you know, we host a ton, we do a butt ton of stuff. Like it's tons. And I could give you tons of people that were ultimate cheerleaders being like, oh, I'm here for you and I'm here to do this and it feels good. And I'm like, no, but play, like participate, be in it and watch what happens.
I love that. That's so true. You can have so much wisdom, you can study, research and all that. But if you don't actually take action, or I think a lot of fear, you know, holds people back, or fear holds a lot of people back, but it's sometimes even paralyzes them, and not enough belief in themselves of like, I can to do this. And so that is the actual game in life, is for you to actually step into it and play the game.
Yeah.
If not, you're just gonna, like, I don't want to sit on the bleachers, you know, or cheer or be a hype girl. So that is such a good point you just made. So I have another question for you. What created that huge like drive within you? Did something happen when you were young and you just like became this ambitious and driven person?
I was always creative. Like I played music growing up and sports, and I think my outlet is achievement or creation. And so I like to see things accomplished. I like to make something. I like to be like, I did that. So ever since I was little, whether it was learning a new skill like crocheting or snowboarding,
that's that's pretty cool. I wasn't expecting that. That's cool.
But you know, like whatever it is, it's like, oh, that looks interesting. And the competitive side of me is like, bet, like I'm gonna learn that. And like if I'm gonna learn the guitar, like I want to be good at guitar. If I'm gonna learn this, I'm gonna be good at this. Like, and it's just always been kind of in my nature. And so somebody's like, hey, you're gonna start a business. Like, yeah, I'm gonna start a business and crush. Like it's gonna like I want to like be proud of it, And I think in nature, most of us need to remember that there's a creator in us. Like we're all built that way. But I think that we forget that's like the power of that's like one of our biggest purposes on this earth is to like go create. Like that's what we're built to do. So if we can remember, like we're all wired this way, it's just something in your childhood or something in your upbringing or like something's happened that kind of got in the way of like and blinded that. And I think I luckily grew up in a family where they let me express, they let me live, they let me, you know what I mean? And I'm grateful for my parents. They've been awesome and the greatest cheerleaders. And so for me, I have like this sensation of like getting more and more, and also the balance of like alignment, meaning like I don't have to have that, but it's just fun. Like life is meant to go experience all of these things. So why not experience ultimate success and not being attached to it? So it's like everybody defines success so differently. And so people are like, you have this drive. I'm like, yeah, but it's just like, this is the game of life. It's fun to just experience things. And I don't have to go like, I'd feel almost like, because I played the game of like achieve, and then you feel empty. And a lot of people will get to that point. And I've been
there too.
And so you're like, it's not all about necessarily more money or more things. And if you can find the balance between alignment and achievement and like really finding joy and just like the game of, well, fun, that looks interesting, let's go experience it, and not being attached to like, oh crap, it didn't make me millions of dollars, or oh shoot, it was only a year instead of 10-year thing that I thought it was going to be, but it was such a cool chapter. Like what a fun experience. And if you could approach life that way of, experience is my number one core value of just like all of the things we're doing is exactly where you're supposed to be. It's exactly how you're supposed to be experiencing it, and trusting and surrendering to like just living. And that to me is like, I don't know, if I could help share anybody anything, like play that game.
That is beautiful. I love how you talked about the detachment, the fulfillment part, and really looking at it from that way, because it's such a like high view of life. We get so stuck in the everyday problems and just routines that you almost forget that it is a huge game. And having it be one of your biggest values, the experience, it just helps you live a really big life without a lot of fear. Like it almost dissolves that fear aspect of, oh yeah, it's just a game and I'm just going to go experience something big and fun.
The perfect example, I was telling you, this weekend I was with my kids and was playing Cover Your Assets, and I'm a 5-year-old girl, and there's 3 of us playing, my two daughters and me, and she's really competitive and very like emotional, and she won last time, so we played twice with her, and the first time she kicked our butts. She was like, I don't want to play, and then she wins, and we're like, look, you won. So then this last weekend we play again, and she's like, I don't want to play. I'm like, and then I was like, you're gonna play. So she's like, okay, will you help me? I was like, yeah. Well, she was getting her butt kicked, and every time you take her pile, she would cry, freak out, and I was like, Nora, like this is no fun. She's like, but I'm not winning, you're winning, and I'm like, this is no fun playing with you. And I watched how into the game it was so much about winning and the emotional roller coaster she'd go on when she'd steal somebody's pile versus when she got a pile stole, and she's like, did I win? Like, and I was like, wow, you're missing the point. You didn't make this game fun. Like, I was like, I'm ready to just toss the cards up and just be like, come over. And I think people play life that way too much. I think people play life where they're crying and whining and they lose and they're like, oh, this is so bad. And they're like, and I'm like, you're no fun to be around. You're no fun to watch.
It's way too serious.
Yeah, you're too serious. I was like, how about we just enjoy, we're, a pre-bedtime game of Cover Your Assets. And I lost. She ended up beating me by 5 points.
I want to know later on what Cover Your Assets game is.
It's a card game.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but I was just thinking about that, and I'm like, man, how many of us show up as Nora versus show up, I lost, and I was like, cool, but what a fun time with my daughters, and then Ellie won this time, and you could just see how excited she was, and I was like, but guess what? Next time we play, it might be a different experience. Like, and why not, instead of learning to hate the game and continuing to condition myself, because next time we play again, here Nora's going to put up a fuss and be like, I'm not playing, I didn't win, and it's like okay, like you're self-electing out of a great experience, and we live life doing that, where it's like, oh, I'm not going to play that game because what if I lose, or what if I embarrass myself, and so we stop to engage in really fulfilling things, and we start to like lose our sparkle and like diminish ourselves and disassociate from good people because that uncomfortability of how we showed up in maybe the last game, or like, and we create these patterns, and I'm like, oh, how do I help Nora? But if you're listening to this, like, how do I help you? How do I be somebody can inspire the trust of just living the experience and things versus being so attached to the achievement of winning the game.
Wow. That is a mic drop moment right there. That's so amazing. I feel like I could, talk to you for hours, but unfortunately we're a little bit out of time today. But before we say goodbye to our listeners and end this episode, I would love for you to maybe just share one last piece of advice with everyone. I know you've dropped a lot of really great nuggets, but what would be the one last piece that you could tell everyone?
Oh, there's a lot. No, it kind of goes back to this. It's like, get clear on understanding your power. I think so many people fail to recognize how powerful they are, and like how much abundance is accessible. It's not limited. Like when you think of like abundance, it's like so many people are out there like, oh, if I could only make 100 grand. I'm like, 100 grand's out there. Like you can create 100 grand within a month, like in a day. Like, I had 100 grand day last week. Like you could, like it's there and it's available to everyone, and not just in finance, but in happiness and any category. Abundance is accessible and it's abundant, meaning it doesn't like, oh, I don't want to take away from your abundance, so I'm going to play different. It's like, no, abundance creates abundance. Like there's more and more and more to be had. It's unlimited, meaning by you being selfish for a second and taking and creating it and having it doesn't take away from anyone. And I think we've trained our minds of like, well, there's only so much to go around, so I wouldn't want to. And I'm like, well, no, what if there's more than enough? Like, and anyway, that would be my advice.
That's amazing. And I admire so much your mindset. I think that's definitely what sets you apart from most people, is just the way you think about everything. And I think that we can all learn from that today. And just thank you so much for being here today with me and our listeners and sharing this experience.
Yeah.
And I'd love for anybody who perhaps connected in some way to you, whether it was in business or anything you said, what would be the best way that they could reach out to you, if whether it's through your social media?
Yeah,
or
probably Instagram. I mean, at the Sam Taggart, Taggart, and yeah, I mean, I do a lot of things, like public speak a lot and train, and we do a lot of events. Come check out one of our events. You can go to the D2D Experts.com or thesamtaggart.com. And yeah, here to support anybody. I think, Instagram would probably DM me. I'm the one that responds to all my DMs, and here to support.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much. And I hope that you've been inspired and that you take full advantage of playing so big in this game of life. Have a great day, everybody.
See ya.